A very good evening, everyone. It is with pleasure that I, Arati Deo, your host and moderator for the evening, welcome all of you back to the fourth and final webinar for the Reliance Foundation Scholarships. Today, we have yet another masterclass with a power-packed panel on the subject, Why do we need more women in technology? We are delighted to have the best and the brightest students from around the country joining us virtually this evening. At Reliance, we believe growth is life. And through this scholarship, we at Reliance Foundation hope to nurture the future of our great nation. We hope to foster the growth of our future leaders and support the youth who will lead the technology revolution in India. Reliance Foundation Scholarships this year aims to identify the most exceptional scholars studying an eligible course in artificial intelligence, computer sciences, mathematics and computing, electrical engineering, electronics engineering, and support 100 of India's brightest undergraduate and postgraduate students with a generous grant award and a holistic development program, which will include expert interactions, industry exposure, and volunteering opportunities, creating a cohort of excellence that will nurture your skills to innovate for social good. Today, in our final webinar, we have a very pertinent subject under discussion, and that is why do we need more women in technology? And for this masterclass, we are joined by a very distinguished panel of speakers who are experts in the fields of artificial intelligence, diversity, and digital inclusion. Without further ado, let us meet our panelists. Our first panel member today is Dr. B. Chandra, who's a renowned academician and has served the computer science group in the Department of Maths at IIT Delhi for over 35 years. During her tenure, she has been the head of the department for 3 years and chairperson of the departmental research committee for 5 years. Her specialization includes machine learning, deep learning, data mining, neural networks for classification and NLP, feature selection databases. She's been teaching these subjects and is also involved in research and guided a number of PhD students. She's also been a chief data scientist at Sprinkler Solutions. She was the principal investigator of many sponsored research projects funded by the defense, chief consultant for projects with stock market and social media companies. Her patent as an inventor with the DRDO was granted in September 2020. Dr. Chandra is the author of 4 books and has published more than 150 research papers in reputed international journals. She has delivered talks at several institutes internationally and has been a visiting professor and a visiting scientist at well-known universities such as University of Pittsburgh, University of Pennsylvania, Maryland, to name a few. It is such a pleasure to have you with us, Dr. Chandra. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Arti.
Let's move to our next panel member, Dr. Arati Deo. She is the Engineering Director for Applied Machine Learning at Google India with over 25 years of experience in the field of machine learning and data science, developing artificial intelligence, machine learning, and predictive software solutions for real-world industry problems. A PhD in electrical and computer engineering from Rice University, Houston, Aarti, before joining Google, was the managing director and India lead for the artificial intelligence practice at Accenture Technology, prior to which she worked at Amazon, where she seeded and developed machine learning and software development teams, spanning both global and India solutions for e-commerce and retail. An ardent sports fan, she herself plays badminton and loves watching sports. It's such a pleasure to have you with us, Aarti. Thank you so much for joining us, and certainly an honor to have you as my namesake.
Yes, thank you, Arti. Happy to be here. Hello, everyone.
Let's introduce our third panel member, and that is Ms. Seema Nair. She's the Senior EVP and member of the Chairman's Office at Reliance Industries Limited. She leads the digitally enabled People Transformation Project, transforming people processes, policies, digitization, and HR capability. She's supporting the much talked about transition of the Reliance hydrocarbons business to the oil to chemical business to realize the RIL vision of 2035 on environmental sustainability and clean energy. Seema has helped create the Diversity and Inclusion Charter for the RIL Group. In a career spanning over 25 years, she's worked across industries like technology, manufacturing, and FMCG. Prior to Reliance, she was the CHRO for Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages. She's passionate about diversity and inclusion and has led D&I efforts in her corporate portfolios over the years. Thank you so much for joining us, Seema. Such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Arti and Reliance Foundation for having me, and really looking forward to being with all of you this evening.
Wonderful. So, once again, thank you so much, Dr. Chandra, Arti, Seema, for joining us today. I think before we start, let me remind all our students that this will certainly be a great opportunity for all of you to interact with our distinguished panel members. So, please go ahead and ask the questions that you would like to know about artificial intelligence, diversities, or maybe even their own career journeys. So, use the comments box and we'll certainly get them answered towards the end of the session. So once again, thank you so much. Such a pleasure to actually have a screen full of women power today. And let us start with you, Dr. Chandra. What made you get into the field of machine learning, and how was your experience getting into a field which perhaps was very new at the time when you started?
It was really amazing, I would say. Really, I enjoyed working each and every moment of my working in the area of machine learning. See, I would tell you how I started. So, when we were this and during our student days, we never had machine learning and all, but I had worked in the area of neural networks and data mining and all. So, it was an easier transition for me to move on from data mining, neural networks to machine learning because all these become a part of machine learning, brother. So I started teaching courses on machine learning, and then for the undergraduates as well as the postgraduates, I think minimum number of students in my course was 100 rather. So I had to restrict the number of students. So more and more students used to come and register for my course from all branches of engineering, not necessarily computer science, but from mechanical, civil, and other branches also, they used to come and attend my course. So, what the best I enjoyed was when I used to give small projects for them to work on. In the what is the best part of machine learning and artificial intelligence? That is really connected to the real world, isn't it? Not like the other topics, like once you study all these things and then go and work in real life. No, in this case, everything. Let's say Tesla car. Okay, that means it works on the basis of artificial intelligence and data science and so on. So here, everything is connected. I used to give them real life projects. I used to make a group of 5 students and take any real life problem and work on it. So I used to award them the best project and all that. Then the PhD students started working in the area of machine learning. So each one of them started with the basic concepts of machine learning, and then the other one, the advanced concepts and deep learning and all. So it was really fascinating to work with the students and this area. And this, I'm telling you, gave me 5 projects in defense for which I was a chief investigator, 5 projects. And when one of them, I was awarded a patent as a chief inventor also of this project. So it is really fascinating to work. So I have worked in several areas, like medical area and then defense area. And so for stock market, so many things rather. It is really fascinating. I would say it's a fascinating world and very exciting to work in the area of machine learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Chandra. And I'm sure it would be amazing to be your student and, with the variety of experiences that you would have got through these projects, I'm sure they would have learned so much. So I'll just have a follow up to this. You worked with so many renowned institutions. And like you just mentioned, you've also worked on multiple projects, as while you've been consulting with them. On different topics of machine learning, deep learning, etc. What should students think about when they consider getting into a career in this field of artificial intelligence and computer science?
Yeah, I would say that from the second year onwards, they should have see now every institution, whether it's Reliance Institution or IITs, NITs, anywhere, no, they have the concept of what is called startups. Okay, or let us say we have what is called FIT, Foundation of Innovation of Technology Transfer, rather. Okay, So every institute has such an unit. So students can form a group of 5 or 6 or something like that, and then take up some real life projects. And a mentor could be one of the teachers. One of the teachers could be a mentor. And then how to work on real life projects. They can approach the companies like Reliance and other industries. They can approach them. They can chalk out a plan. Okay, now this will be our mode of how we will attack the problem, how we will solve the problem, what will be the final solution we are going to give you, like that. No, that group of 5, so like that they can make. And then the mentor could be one of the teacher, one or more teachers, faculty members. And then that would really help them build up their career, and also develop interest in the topic also, not necessarily just writing exams and all. I would suggest that every institute, whether it is IIT, NIT, Reliance, anywhere, Geo Institute, anywhere, what I would say is reserve 25% of weightage for these activities. So that would really encourage the students to apply whatever they study in practice. That's what I would say.
Thanks so much, Dr. Chandra. And I think, of course, the Reliance Foundation scholarship itself is also in that direction to enable everything that you just said.
Yeah,
Um,
I really agree with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Chandra. Dr. Aarti, let's talk about inclusivity. Now, it is said that one of the critical aspects for successful product design and development, inclusivity and having different points of view is very critical. So, from your experience at Google and even other multinationals that you worked with, why is diversity important for innovation, and how does it help the industry and the business? If you could maybe share some examples.
Sure, yeah. So I think first, just to kind of think about diversity, obviously today we are focused on, women in technology, but diversity really has very, lots of dimensions. So of course, race, gender, age, etc. But then also, other aspects of diversity, like the industry background that you may have inculcated in your work, or the academic background that Dr. Chandra just talked about, having experience of research in different fields. So there's so many different aspects to diversity, and I think that's one thing important to keep in mind as we talk about diversity and inclusion. uh, but then, if you look at studies that have been done, and there have been multiple studies which all show that when you have teams that are diverse and inclusive, where there is a feeling of equality in the teams, that drives a higher innovation mindset typically. And sort of as a follow up to that, drives more ROI and revenue through innovation. So companies which have diverse and inclusive cultures have been shown to have a competitive edge with respect to driving innovative products. And there, what they are looking at is products that are creating revenue, let's say in the 3-year time frame. So multiple studies have shown that this is true. For example, one of the studies has shown that when you have diverse teams with an equality mindset, there's a 6x multiplier in terms of the innovation mindset of the team. They've defined innovation mindset in terms of different aspects that are related to innovation. But when you take all that into account, that number is sort of stunning, right? That you can really drive innovation in such a big way. And why is that? If you come to gender diversity, for example, women control about 40 to 50% of income globally. Globally, it's 40%. In some countries, it's above 50%. And in terms of making or influencing purchases, more than 80% of purchases are made or influenced by women. So, it's just sort of a no brainer to say that you have to have women included in designing products where they are influencing so many decisions. And, again, sort of the numbers also kind of back that up. For example, one study shows that companies which have at least one woman board member uh, have a much better ROI on their products amongst their peers, compared to companies which have all male board members. Unfortunately, sadly, it's still true that majority of company have all male board members, and that has to be changed. But some of these numbers are now influencing companies to to put a lot more focus on this. Similarly, with other dimensions of diversity, right? So if you take ethnicity, it has been shown that if in your team you have a member who has the same ethnicity as your client, you're twice as likely to better understand the product requirements, etc., of that background. And so there's multiple studies like this that very clearly show that diversity and equality together drive a lot more innovation, and in the end drive better ROI for the companies.
Thanks, Dr. Aarti, for that, and very interesting statistics that you've shared, and also for sharing diverse, say insights into diversity itself. So, absolutely, relate to that. Let's move to an India perspective. How can more inclusive technology lead to increased societal inclusiveness? When we look at, say, for India.
Yeah, so I mean, there's several examples now. All of us have lived through, last 2 years of, a very different world, right? And in this different world, in some ways, technology has taken a sort of a bigger role in our lives, especially our working lives, because even today in, this panel, we are doing it completely virtually, which would have been unheard of just a few years ago. And so this is a classic example of how technology is driving more inclusivity, because more people are able to participate more easily if they have access to this technology. So it's a little bit of a two-edged sword also, because those who have the access to technology are able to participate and be included a lot better, and hence it's important for us to make this technology accessible to more folks. If you take the revolution of the mobiles, today in India, very large percent of people have mobiles today. And let's say 15-20 years ago, we would not have imagined almost everyone in the country having a mobile. And that is giving so much power in the hands of people who would not have had it, in terms of digital payments, in terms of banking and loans related services, in terms of education, right? I was mentioning about the last 2 years, and even in education now, if you have access to a mobile and data or Wi-Fi, you are able to participate a lot more. Healthcare, one of the areas where we are revolutionizing access through technology is being able to reach patients in remote areas, being able to give them sort of first level of care, even though they may not have a clinic or doctors in their vicinity. So all of these are examples where technology is kind of widening the reach, widening services to people, making them more affordable also. However, at the same time, I think we have to be cognizant that for those who are not used to technology, or may not have the education to know about it, right, need to be kind of brought into the fold. And even senior citizens, for example, all of us have seen our parents kind of now trying to do remote calls, etc., in this time, right? And they have to be educated. So I think we all have to have a focus on that as well. But if we drive that tech inclusivity, I think that will lead to overall a better inclusivity.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Dr. Aarti. Seema, I'll move the next question to you. And I was reading something that Josh Person said, that companies that embrace diversity and inclusion in all aspects of their business statistically outperform their peers. Now, given your experience of working with some of the largest companies, what are some things that organizations are doing to promote more women in the workforce? Whether it be in technology, manufacturing, from your experience, if you could share.
Yeah, so before I come to women, right, Aarti, let me talk a little bit about diversity at a broader scale, right? We're talking about, and here we are talking, when we say diversity, we're talking about all three, right? Diversity, equality, and inclusion, because I don't think one can, work on its own, right, without the other. So I think, Dr. Arati Dev, right, has very eloquently, and I completely agree with everything she just said, right, talked about the need for inclusivity in technology, right? But I think it's a little bit beyond that. As an HR professional, right, I'm a very strong believer in the fact that, running a successful business and being able to make your employees successful is at the heart of everything that we try to do, right? You cannot run a successful business without making your employees successful. And so the closer the business aspirations are, which largely for most businesses, right, the aspiration would be growth, right, being able to de-risk oneself in the face of, evolving, let's say, VUCA, and so on and so forth, right? The ability to understand what the next wave is, right, and to create longevity for the business and sustainability for the business, right, in terms of being able to navigate to the next wave, to be able to reach the next layer of customers, and so on. And of course, I mean, even in today's day and age, right, especially for us as an industry as well, in energy and materials, ESG is a very, very big concern, right? The whole environment, social change, right, that's taking place around the world, an extremely important focus for us. So when we take a look at all of these, right, one big piece that comes to mind is innovation. Innovation in our thinking of all different kinds of processes, innovation in our business models, innovation in the way we are reaching customers, in the way we reach different kinds of channels, or sales and distribution channels, and so on and so forth. What kind of financial models do we need, right, to be able to invest in very large mega projects where significant amounts of capex, opex, etc., is required, right? So if I think about just two or three different examples, there's retail, and the reach that we're trying to create across different channels within retail across the tier two. And in fact, the focus is not even anymore on tier one towns or cities, right? The focus, at least for Reliance, is in the tier two, tier three. Right, we're looking at maybe 5,000 stores across the length and breadth of the country. And how do you reach that customer, right? How does he or she have the same experience that a customer today sitting in a city or town might be much more easily able to have? At the same time, do that in a way where you're not disrupting the local shops or the local stores, right, and taking away employment models, from them. That's inclusion in its own way, right? Similarly, if we take a look at geo and digital services, right, and again to Dr. Aarti Dev's conversation, right, how do you make the UI UX design, right, of that handheld technology such that somebody who doesn't understand technology can use it? And similarly, right, not everybody can afford smartphones. Obviously, you need to drive the affordability factor and the price factor down, and that's one journey that Geo is on. But over and above that, right, how do you also ensure that the design is such that even somebody who may not have a smartphone is still able to do, right? Like, for example, in retail, again, between Geo and retail, we need to hire more than 2 lakh people for Reliance alone, right, across those stores. And many of the candidates that we're going to be hiring are probably not going to have a smartphone, or not be able to use some of the pieces, right? So one of the areas that we're looking at in HR technology, right, is in the field of associate hiring, be able to have candidates like that who can still have similar experiences, right? That let's say a college graduate or campus graduate, right, or even more senior professional would be able to have in the field of employee experience or candidate experience, right? If I take a look at energy and materials, completely different ball game from an industry standpoint. Over the next decade or so, we are going to be investing about $80 billion, right? And what are we doing? In a way, we are cannibalizing our own business, right? We were saying at a point of time we were about fossil fuel, right? We're transitioning from oil to chemicals, which is basically the expansion of O2C, right? And even more importantly, over the next several years, moving from the oil-based or fossil fuel-based economy to say, okay, what are the new forms of energy? What are renewables? How do we create a circular economy? How do we do carbon capture? How do we do storage of hydrogen, and all the other technologies that go along with that, right? Solar, battery, electric vehicles, etc., etc. And there's a huge wave of innovation that needs to be unleashed. The amount of technology investment and all of this, I mean, it's nothing short of staggering, right? And so the question then is, how do you capture the brightest minds to come and want to work for you? So looking at this from an employment model standpoint as well, and it's probably not going to be just one static employment model that will work. So beyond employees, you have to look at all the other different types of employment models. How do you build capability for people who are inside your ecosystem, who are outside your ecosystem, right? Across the entire length and breadth of the ecosystem becomes the conversation, right? So when I'm looking at DEI, I'm looking at it in all these different lens. And of course, what's very close to my heart is also the piece around gender diversity, right? And for all the good reasons around business, and the fact that different people are looking at business from very different lenses, and how do we replicate, what our customer looks like, right? Inside our organizations as well becomes the mandate.
Thank you, Seema. So I think we've clearly established the need for diversity, and of course, not restricting it to gender diversity, but going back to what Dr. Aarti said and what you've just alluded to, Seema, I think there's a clear need on the importance of diversity for especially innovation and hence for successful corporates. But let me take this a little further and focus more on gender diversity or imbalance. Seema, we continue to see that the STEM fields have a gender imbalance. So, in your opinion, what's the missing link for STEM diversity, and how can we encourage more women in science?
So I think it starts in school, and specifically in middle school, primary, middle, and high school years. Obviously, each of these ages, right? There are different needs, and there are different implications, and there are different actions that, in my mind, need to be taken, right? Girls in math. I mean, there are a lot of bias around the fact that girls might not know math, but the reality of the day, even today, when we take a look at our 10th standard and our 12th standard statistics, right? You'll find state after state after state, girls actually outperform boys, right? In terms of all the STEM related fields. So then the problem is not necessarily around whether girls are good at those subjects or not good at those subjects, right? Obviously there is a social bias around saying, okay, if it's a boy, sometimes even today, right, we see if it's a boy we want to push them towards engineering, if it's a girl we want to push them towards medicine, or perhaps even non science sort of fields, right? So it starts over there, right, sometimes. Now, moving on, the question is how many girls are able to get into colleges. So, not so much on the basis of merit. I think they outperform, as I mentioned earlier. The question is how many of them are continuing to get educated past high school, staying in colleges. Even then, if you take a look at even the engineering colleges, right, today in the country, I think it's not, while it's not 50-50, it's getting closer and closer to 50-50 with every passing decade, right? So to that degree we have an excellent pool, I think, at least of talent that's coming out from the engineering colleges into the industry. So probably that is also not the challenge, right, in terms of life cycles, where there's a bit of challenge and a bit of a loss over there, right? Then it starts coming after that. Especially when you start taking a look at 20s and the life cycle, right, at least in Indian culture and ecosystem, is there are three M's that in my mind start coming to the fore. The three M's are marriage, motherhood, and mobility, right? And so then the question is how can we get so now they're no longer girls, they're obviously women and young women, right? How can we get them to get past these situations and continue to have them in the workplace, continue to have them building careers? If we look back once again in terms of data, right, let's say that same girl, maybe she was 22 years old, or young woman, she was 22 years old maybe, or 21 years old when she graduated from engineering college. And if you're talking about becoming industry captains and leaders of tomorrow in any field, it could be in tech, it could be in research, it could be as an engineering leader, or any other field that one talks about, right? Let's assume we're talking about now 30 years hence, that person is 52 years old, right? The likely, all other things being equal, the likelihood of somebody being able to grow is the person who's continued to have a career for 30 years, notwithstanding career breaks and movements and shifts and all of those kinds of things. Those one can take in one stride, but the likelihood is somebody who's had the staying power for 30 years, right? Now many of our women get lost at maybe the fifth year, the 10th year, the 15th year. And once again, much power and a lot of respect to everybody who makes these choices for themselves and says this is what I want to do. So obviously all of that is respected, understood. But at the same time, is there a person who's coming under pressure and saying because of this and this and this I had to give up, right, and I could not get back, right? And so then that's where we start losing. And so a lot of industry focus, I think, as well as social focus, right, needs to be in enabling our women to continue to grow, right, despite all of this. One last thing, and I think as the generations go and as the years go, probably less important, maybe, right, is the ambition, right? Am I seeing a job as a career, or am I just seeing it as a job, right? Does it just pay my monthly bills, or do I want to focus on investing in learning, building capability for myself and growing, right? So where's the ambition, and where is the interest?
Thanks, Seema, for sharing that. And I really liked how you articulated it with the three M's. I think that's something which our students will also probably take away. But very, very pertinent points that you've shared. And I think an enabling environment is something which will certainly propel this further. If I just have to give an example, I mean, 20 years back is when I did my mechanical engineering, and I was the only girl in a batch of 120 in that class. And you're right. I mean, it typically starts from school, from college, and how does that environment continue to kind of propel you to move forward. So thanks so much for sharing that, Seema. And Aarti, I think I'll come back to you. So as we build artificial intelligence and machine learning, how can we reduce the bias from past data and past history? And on the flip side, how can artificial intelligence actually help reduce or eliminate the gender bias in certain scenarios?
Yeah, so actually, in fact, this is an active field of research, I would say. As machine learning and artificial intelligence is becoming more and more pervasive in our lives, these questions of bias and ensuring that the models and the systems that we build are actually not biased in against a certain segment or a group, etc., are becoming very important. And bias creeps in, uh, in a way, due to two main reasons. One is the past decisions taken in a system. So, take, let's say, loan system. And if it so happened that in the past, a lot more loans were given to men versus women, or could be more senior people versus younger people, then, and if you're using that data to train a model, then the model is just going to emulate what the past rules did. And sometimes there could have also been some human bias in some of those decisions. And so as we build the machine learning models now, we are learning to evaluate whether there is bias in past data, and then how do we get around it. We have to you sample data differently, or you have to do other adjustments to how you train the model. So it's not, and I would say even measurement of this bias is not something that is necessarily well understood, because one of the things I always like to say is, for a machine learning system now we are trying to measure bias, but when humans were making the same decision, we had no framework to, like, we didn't ask a human what were the top criteria due to which you rank this high versus this, etc., right? In For the human brain, we cannot separate out the exact features. We just know instinctively why we are making a certain decision. But now we are trying to train the machine learning models to actually be able to figure this out. So I would say this is an active area of research, but this is something, as students who are getting into this field, or as practitioners, it's something we have to be very sort of cognizant of, in terms of making sure that we build models the right way. And there's lots of examples, like hiring is one example, a lot of image related examples, right? Like skin colors, different types of images that may or may not be included in your training data, and that can lead to lots of bias. So yeah, so there's many examples where models do go wrong because of this bias, and we have to watch out against it. And techniques to do it are not yet, I would say, well established. We are all learning how to make models better.
Very interesting. I think certainly an area where our Reliance Foundation scholars can hopefully contribute soon as well. Dr. Chandra, I'll come to you. So, what are the opportunities that are out there today as students move from academics to research to industry? How can they take advantage of these opportunities that exist today?
Yeah, I have worked in all areas, okay, academics as well as the multinational companies also, rather. Like, you mean that you want me to tell regarding the women or in general for the students?
I think in general, and of course, if there are specific areas where you'd like to highlight for
Yeah,
people as well, but of
sure.
course, it'll benefit all our students.
Yeah, like, the students have different kind of aptitude. Okay, we cannot categorize. We cannot say everyone should go for and take up a job in a company. So there are some students who are highly motivated towards research. Okay, they don't want to go in for company jobs and do the mundane coding and all that. They don't like at all. Rather, okay. But I think there are. I would say these days, I would say only 5% of the students they want to go in for research. Okay, they say that no, I want to do hardcore research and I want to build up something, discover something new in the area of AI, machine learning, deep learning, like that. They are very enthusiastic. Rather, there are next category of students who would go for only for specialized companies. They have earmarked, okay, like no, that they have very firm idea. Okay, I will not go for just for coding, simple coding. I would not go for such companies. The other students they decide, okay, I would go only to finance companies because they pay more rather. Okay, and there are yet other category and third category of students who would like to go for any job which gives them good package. Okay, and there are of course students who do not fare very well in IITs. Well, we have a good joke rather. If you just pass, you will get the job, brother. That's it. Okay, get a. But see, my experience says that it is not necessary that one has to be a 10 pointer. I have really seen who have got only 6 GPA out of 10, but they're excelling in their jobs. They are. I would give an example. Okay, he was not interested in all the topics, but he was specifically interested in coding and all that. He used to help all the faculty, the research students who are into coding and all. And he was employed by a company for hacking company, how to discover there is a hacking going on or not. He got the best offer because of his experience in coding. So it is not necessary everybody has to be a 10 pointer rather. He was only a 6 pointer, but he was very good at one area, that is the coding. That's what. And one advice for see, nowadays the so where I was a chief data scientist at Sprinkler Solutions. Okay, after my IIT job, then I found that there are very few women and more men were there. But nowadays, that gender bias is reducing in companies. Rather, they do in the academic institutions. There is no problem at all. Companies still hesitate taking women because they cannot work beyond 10 p.m. But like in a startup companies, they want women to work like till 12. Now, the last 2 years has been very peaceful. They could work from home and all that, but otherwise, like the startup companies, they demand more. They want to them to work till 12 midnight, and then so of course they provide some escort and all that in the taxi and all that. Even then, no women cannot adjust to this kind of atmosphere. So there has to be a balance. The company has to understand, and the women also have to adjust, talk to the companies before that regarding the timings and all that. So that's company jobs. I would say that they should choose the reputed companies where they value women rather. So I would say woman is a typical example of a parallel processor rather. They can do more than one job at a time. Now people have started realizing that. I think reputed companies still prefer, they like women, and but startup companies, they want more and more work. So depending on, so you should the students at the end of second year should sit together, or they have guidance from people what areas they want to proceed further, like which type of companies they want to go. They want to go in for research, or what type of companies. some kind of fair idea they should have in mind. Otherwise, you're going nowhere. You'll be applying for 70 companies. What is the use? Like, then you choose the one which is. I will give you another example. When I was the head of the department, one student, we arranged for a scholarship like the Reliance scholarship. No, American Express gave scholarship for fourth and fifth year students who perform extremely well. That student got the scholarship for 2 years, but the condition was that he should join American Express. Okay, but it was such a pity, rather. He worked for 2 months and he didn't like the atmosphere at all. He resigned. And then got a call from them. What is this? We gave scholarship for 2 years and he hardly worked for 2 months. And then he just left the company and he moved on to Deloitte, rather. I think students should, in fact, value people who give lot of recognition and all. No, like they should not leave companies and do hop from one company to another just for the sake of finance, money, and all that. They should. What is the main aim of a student? They should build very good impression among the people, rather. Okay, so you will get a good recommendation also. When you move on to other companies, you'll get a good recommendation also. Not hop from one company to another just 3 months, 3 months, like that, rather. So here are two: one must work and then earn good recognition and please your boss and learn the subjects. And that's what I would advise for all the students. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. So, of course, some great advice coming in over there. And much like what Seema said, that I think a lot of corporates and organizations today, of course, are providing an enabling environment to be able to, have this diversity successfully thrive. Aarti, I'll move to you. And just before I do that, just a quick nudge and a reminder to all our students, to put in their questions in the comment box, and we'll have them answered by our panel. So before we move to the audience questions, a quick last question that I'd like to ask, and Aarti, maybe if you could tell us, what are some of those tech areas today that are increasingly seeing women successfully leading the way? Are there some specific areas like those?
So yeah, I mean, actually, let me just tie in to the previous question and Dr. Chandra's response a little bit, and a couple of points we made earlier as well, right? So we were talking about tech inclusivity earlier, and then, for example, we were talking about some of these new areas in AI and machine learning, like bias detection and so on. And one of my managers uh, used to say, he is a great supporter of diversity, and one of the things he always emphasized is, currently with so much new technology coming up, there's actually a more level playing field from a diversity perspective, because it's not that, for example, like in AI and ML, there are new things coming up. There's new areas coming up, like blockchain. Cloud is exploding. There's so much new stuff happening there. And so in all these new technology areas, there's nobody who has, like, years and years of experience. Everyone is learning on the job. Even people who have worked in this field for many years, like, Dr. Chandra was talking about how, initially she did data mining neural networks. Very similarly, when I started my job, there was no deep learning. We were doing, neural networks with one or two hidden layers, and it was like the first wave of neural networks. But then when some of these new technologies came up today, there are so many new model constructs. We have to learn those. We cannot just stay with whatever knowledge we had from before. So everyone has to be learning. And so my point is that it makes an equal playing field for new people coming in as well. And so that, that inclusivity, because of new technology, it drives, new types of careers and creates a more level playing field for everybody. And so that's, I wanted to kind of emphasize that to this audience, so that there is opportunity, for everyone. I think you asked me about new technology areas, right? So I think I highlighted some of these. And if I just take even AI and machine learning, right, I talked about bias, but for example, some of I there will be new careers in this area. So in earlier years, for example, machine learning was mostly about data science, and some engineering. Today there is a lot of actually engineering involved, because there's so many ready APIs, and you can incorporate machine learning models a lot more easily into your software. And so that the software engineering itself has an ML specialty. But then now we want product managers who understand AI and machine learning, and who can think of features that will incorporate that technology into whatever products we are building. Then I talked about bias. So I think in future, for example, we may need AI explainers. We may need people who are able to explain decisions from an AI ML model, or build, I would say, rather build more explainable technologies. You would need people who are able to create the right kind of data, like we were talking about bias. So how can you create data that is unbiased? That itself is there's new things to be figured out there. So these are just examples of a lot of new roles that will come up with every new technology. I think we have to have an open mind and a very sort of learning mindset, and then go after whatever you feel passionately about.
Thank you. In fact, I think you've articulated it so well that it is a level playing field, and we need to be forever learners. Dr. Chandra, I think you would like to add something.
Yeah, as Dr. Arti was mentioning, like, we used to work in the area of neural networks and data mining. Until 2006, we used to tell the students, you use not more than two hidden layers, since it will be computationally very expensive. Please do not use more than two hidden layers, because there'll be too many weight connections and all that. After 2006, we have to transform ourselves because of Hinton coming into area of introducing deep learning. They said introduce more and more hidden layers. So that's how the transformation took place, Rana.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Same
So,
with input features, and we used to say you should not have features that are multi-collinear. We used to do so much analysis on features.
Yeah.
Today, the kinds of models we are building with tons and tons of data, and even the technique of how we are thinking about the models had changed a lot. So that was a very good point that Dr. Chandra made.
great, thank you. I think we can certainly carry this discussion on, but we've got a few audience questions in place, so let me quickly get right at those. Seema, the first question is for you. What has been the hardest thing about rising the corporate ladder as a woman, and what are some of the current glass ceilings that one faces? Seema, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder, Arti. So I think I mentioned the three M's, right? And typically that's something that most people conquer, let's say in the first 10 years, 12 years, right? Depending of their career. Sometimes the third M, right? Which is mobility can continue over years, right? For example, if there's a spouse or a partner or if there are children involved, right? Then especially as one starts talking about multi-country, multi-location, right? That still continues to possibly be a question mark over the years, right? And each family has to then figure out, right, for itself what's right for them. But beyond that, I think increasingly the glass ceilings are going away. It's all in the mind, right? There could be a specific bias coming in from a specific person, like for example, even late working or working from home versus working from office versus being in a meeting. For example, even today, right? I mean, I find that unless I'm with my team, which obviously has a lot of gender and other types of diversity, but if I'm in a business leader meeting, right? Even today, 99% of the times I'm the only woman in the room, and I happen to be a very outspoken person. That's a whole different conversation, irrespective of gender, I think, right? And I will put my point of view across. So I think to that degree, it's again about finding that courage, right? First of all, obviously doing the reading, the research. It cannot be, saying things just for the sake of it. There has to be a thought process that goes, and that requires some amount of effort and reading and learning, right? As Dr. Arti mentioned, there's really no end to it in any field, right, that you're in. But sometimes the hesitation is in our mind, and I always say this, right? Your thoughts are literally a few inches away from your tongue,
Hmm.
right? Your brain is just a few inches away from your tongue, and so the ability to say what's on your mind in a way that the listener can understand and appreciate, right? And again, there's also sometimes we say communication is done. That's the biggest fallacy, right? So influence is way beyond communication. So being able to first of all say it, that requires courage. Being able to say things in a way that the listener can understand, can hopefully agree to, can act on. So if we've traversed all of this, then we've moved from just communicating or just dumping something on someone to becoming an influencer. And in my mind, that's a huge barrier, right? I mean, if you can traverse that, you cross the journey to leadership, and you become an influencer and you're a leader in a certain way, because somebody in that, irrespective of whether they're reporting to you or not, is actually following you, is doing something that you're asking them to do, right? And I think that's all that is required, right, in terms of the journey to leadership, and so on. There's always going to be individuals that you come across who look at you, that need not be gender specific, it could be anything, right? And especially in India, there's fair amount of bias in terms of, let's say, community, in terms of religion, in terms of age, and things like that. Those barriers, but depending on where we are, sometimes grow and sometimes diminish, right? And so one has to keep working past all of that.
Thanks
Yeah,
for that.
I just add to that that I was thinking the same thing, that we have to set our expectations clearly sometimes, because there is unconscious bias that we may not even be aware of. Like, I'll give you an example. Uh, there was a manager who had a person who just had a baby coming back to work, and this person assumed that she would not want to travel. So he was trying to find roles where she would not need to travel, and instead she was like, I have the right support at home, I don't have a problem traveling, and I would love to actually have a change and go travel on work sometimes. So assuming that just because somebody had a baby is not able to travel is an unconscious bias, and sometimes we kind of have to become aware of those, and then be able to, just like Seema was saying, right, we need to be able to express ourselves and say, yes, this is fine with me, I can do this, I can do this, and also I cannot do this. Saying no to things that you may not be able to do, I think saying those clearly is important.
Yes, Dr. Chandra.
Yeah, as Dr. Arti told, no, see, I would like to continue further on that. Women, they should, I think, whatever education they have had, they should see that they use it in their profession and continue their profession throughout their life, even though there may be a break of 3 to 6 months. Many of the women, I find that like after a few years they say no, no, that's enough. And I think, so why we study? Because we want to use it. Rather, you have to continue throughout your life, and then the break of 3 to 6 months, that's fine, rather. But you should not just to earn a degree, you should not have education. That is to use it in practice. That's what should be in the mind of women.
Seema,
Thank
you
you.
were
And
saying.
Aarti, yeah, if I may add, right, and something that Dr. Dev said just sparked another thought, right, which is to go back and, to communicate very clearly. So as much as you want to have that influence in meetings and conversations, right, across, also with your manager, right? I mean, how many of us can put our hand on our heart and say, I know what my manager's key priorities. So not so much manager pleasing, I would say, but do I know my managers, or not just manager, right? My key stakeholders. First of all, do I understand the business vision and mission of the company? Do I know what the strategic priorities of the organization are? Am I taking the effort to understand that, or ask people if I don't understand? Do I understand how my role connects to all of that? And do I know what my teams or my managers or my business and stakeholders, right, key priorities are? And by the way, am I on the critical path? Likely I'm going to become very important to my manager and I'm going to outperform and outshine my contemporaries if I'm on my manager's critical path, if I'm holding one or more of those critical priorities and I'm delivering to those. If not, then I'm going to be somewhere on the sides, right? And so being able to have those conversations and doing that little bit of research, reading and taking that effort, right? So careers in my mind is about IQ, having the innate capability which is God given, that we cannot control, right? But then it's also about EQ, which is interpersonal relations, being there for others, right? It's also about hard work and willingness and commitment. And then, of course, ethics, right? Somewhere comes along the way. And I'm not talking about ethics in a financial sense, but I'm talking about intellectual integrity, right? In that sense.
Thank you so much, Seema, and thank you so much, Dr. Aarti and Dr. Chandra, for adding on. Dr. Chandra, the next question is for you.
Mhm.
So the question is that you have so much experience in academia, research, and even industry. Where did you learn the most?
The industry.
industry. Wow, that's really,
Yeah,
really short
yeah,
and crisp. But maybe if you just
yeah.
like to elaborate
I
what.
would say that, see, what kind of learning I had in academia and industry, I would say. Okay. In academia, see, my students worked in all kinds of research fields, like starting from neural networks, data mining, classification, clustering, feature selection, deep learning, and all this. So I was really fascinated. I used to sit till 9:30 p.m. and then with the students and then discussion and all that, no? So when more and more good results come in, we used to have the mathematical techniques and then applying real. I always apply techniques on the real world problems also, rather. So we used to get fascinated, and I did so many projects for the defense, the Department of Biotechnology, the Department of Science and Technology, and so many things I did. And so one of our techniques was used in National Standards Institution in Maryland. When I visited there, no, they used that technique. They asked for the code. They used that. They said it's a fascinating feature selection technique. So we used to have that kind of fascination in academics. But when I moved on to industry, okay, so before moving on to industry, I had the student did some project with me on social media analytics. Okay, social media analytics. The company was so impressed. They said, "No, we are appointing you as a chief data scientist rather." So it was. So there, I found that what kind of different kinds of problems they have. They had who were their clients? The clients were Nike, Microsoft, and Coach, and all these big companies were their clients rather. Then I knew how these techniques are used in practice rather. Like, I give you an example. Like, you have no all this Nike, you have the Fitbits and shoes and all that, no? So I came to know there is the shoe. You can make your own shoe by using these techniques. You can make your own shoe. You say that I want this size, I want this color, and then they should be broader in the front, and then like all these designs and all you can make. It's called Nike by you. What have they done? They've used artificial intelligence. And then there is another Starbucks. My daughter is in US. So she said, no, the Starbucks knows what kind of coffee I want, rather. They collect information. She goes to the coffee shop every time. They collect information. So like next time you go, they will know that you want a mocha coffee with this and all that, rather. So these are the companies. When I went to the company, I found that Microsoft mentions data. They were working on that. So what Microsoft has different kinds of products. Okay. So for these products, so when to address the issue, the tweets are coming in, okay, in different media, the Facebook, Twitter platform, everywhere it is coming. The company was analyzing like when to address the issue. Some of them, this is fine, excellent product. There's no point in addressing that issue. They say it's crashing so fast and it is not at all used. Okay, it has to be, the query has to be answered within 3 hours rather. So this is the kind of these are so they had all these clients. So I used to enjoy the practical problems which they are dealing with. So in academia, I used to enjoy the research and apply it in practice. But here I enjoy what kind of applications one can have. Now, social media analytics has become very important these days, isn't it? So that is the crux of it. That's how I used to enjoy. So my trip is also using artificial intelligence for all this bookings of hotels and everything. So this is how, when you go to a company, you know how to use it in practice.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Chandra. And you shared some really great examples of experiences that you've had through, the applications that you just shared. So thank you so much for those. I think in the interest of time, we'll take that as the last audience question. But, let's move to the last segment of our discussion today and I'm doing it with a very heavy heart because I think this discussion was very, very interesting and it can certainly go on. But let's move to the last part, and we're going to make this fun. We have a few questions for our panel members. They're not difficult questions, I promise. I think you're all, technology experts. These questions, you'll all nail them very easily. So please brace yourself. And Seema, let's start with you. So, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word diversity?
Innovation.
Wonderful. Dr. Chandra, to you, what comes to your mind when I say artificial intelligence?
Applying practice,
Great.
application in
Dr.
practice.
Aarti, to you. Sorry, Dr. Chandra.
Application in practical life, like
Application.
design a new car, okay, which will fly. Okay, design, so apply in real world, that's what should be your aim.
Sure, certainly. Dr. Aarti, to you, first thing that comes to your mind when I say Reliance Foundation.
Learning.
Wonderful. Dr. Chandra, back to you. What do you miss the most from your time as a student?
Can you repeat the question?
I was asking, what do you miss the most from your time as a student?
Yeah, student life is the one full of enjoyment, okay. When you move on from student life, it is a complete seriousness, especially when you take up a job in a place like IIT. There is so much competition around among the faculty and everybody, So we want to be the best, rather. So when you move on from the student life, is really enjoyable. Give parties and everything. No, that is all gone. So you should enjoy the to the fullest when you are a student. Do not miss it at all, rather enjoy to the fullest, I would say.
Thanks so much. I'm sure the students are listening to this part very, very intently and are certainly going to do that. Dr. Aarti, we'll move to you. If not a data scientist and a technology expert, what would have been your alternate career?
Yeah, I think archaeology has fascinated me for many years. From a child, I've loved visiting forts, old forts, looking at how they've been built and so on. Yeah, so I think I would have definitely loved to have been an archaeologist. And, I still have a dream that maybe I can connect machine learning and archaeology sometime in the future. One of the very interesting problems is the Indus script, right? The Indus Valley civilization script has yet not been decoded, and
Understood.
there are, for example, AI and machine learning techniques being applied to try and detect patterns there. So there are problems like that in archaeology, which someday, maybe post retirement, I might
So
try out.
fascinating. No, that's really fascinating. In fact, I almost thought, you'll say that we'll see you with a fossil brush, but you managed to bring in
Right.
technology even over there. So very nice. Very fascinating. Seema, my last questions to you. One product or technology that exists today and you wish you had it in your student times.
Yeah, as I was saying, right, earlier, I mean, there's so many, right? But I still remember writing my dissertation at XLRI, right? With this very, very painful, we were taking turns. So we had to book the computer room. We were taking turns on this huge, big machine, right? And then finally you give up because it's almost never impossible. We wrote with typewriters and, then the errors, you're taking the white blotting ink and so on and so forth. So I do wish laptops, I wish Google itself, I wish, so many technologies, right, would have been available when we were students, would have made life much, much more simple. I think even the information on careers, right, and ability to understand what are the education courses available, what kind of careers. I mean, today, literally everything is available on a global scale, right, at your fingertips, versus at that point in time, we hardly knew what we need to be doing from a career choices standpoint.
Absolutely, and I think that's where the students who are with us today, of course, have that opportunity and advantage. I think, including me, I'm sure all of you, wish that we had the Reliance Foundation scholarships when we were students. So this is such an exciting opportunity, students. So please do make the most of it. And before we close the session, let's quickly take a look at what the Reliance Foundation scholarships is all about.
Over the course of the last few decades, human interaction with technology has witnessed remarkable change. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and artificial intelligence, computer sciences, mathematics and computing, and electrical and/or electronics engineering, which are powering new technologies, are at the core of the transformation. We are launching the Reliance Foundation Scholarships in artificial intelligence, computer sciences, mathematics and computing, and electrical and/or electronics engineering to nurture future young leaders who will be at the forefront of fulfilling India's dream of a digital tomorrow. Our aim is to support you, the brightest youth of this nation, and to create a community of scholars who are uniquely positioned to lead India's technologically driven growth. The application and selection process is spread across 5 stages, starting with an online eligibility questionnaire, followed by an online application form. At the first level selection, applications will be evaluated, after which shortlisted candidates will move to a second level selection process for interviews. And finally, scholars will be announced. The Reliance Foundation Scholarships will nurture future leaders who understand the potential of these future technologies and aim to use it to innovate to create seamless solutions for the advancement of Indian society and beyond. We look forward to your application.
Well, that's certainly an extremely exciting opportunity. So, students, please do make the most of it. Before we go, panel members, thank you so much for joining us, and would request you all to please share your participatory words of wisdom that you'd like to share for our students and our future scholars.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Chandra, let's start.
I think we should have a non-serious mood also. All work and no play makes a dull boy. Okay, you should continue with your hobbies also. Rather, it's not necessary all the time to study. See, for example, I give my own example. I'm a good ghazal singer, rather. Okay, so it's that the passion, whatever it's, whether it's sports or music or and painting, anything, you should continue with that. That makes you, relax. Okay, not you are always concentrating on studies. You should continue with your hobbies as well. That's okay. That's what I.
Thank you, Dr. Chandra. Very, very wise, and certainly, our students should continue to pursue their passion as well. Dr. Arti, from you.
Yeah, I was going to say keep learning, but I won't say that now, given what Dr. Chandra said. But I'll say follow your passion and keep an open mind. I think new things keep coming, and it's important to keep an open mind, and just follow what excites you.
Thank you, Seema.
Yeah, so 30, 40 years from now, right? By the time we are all ready to retire, although some of us may want to retire at 30, 40, 50, whatever the ages are, right? Careers are going to look very different. Careers 30, 40 years ago, world of work, right, looked completely different. The future is again going to come completely different. And technology advancements, right, I mean, are becoming faster and faster, right? The cycles are becoming shorter and shorter. So keep up with it, enjoy the ride, and no matter what you do, please do not quit, right? We want to see you as captains of industry, captains of academia, whatever it is you want to do. Please go out there and enjoy yourself.
Such wonderful advice. Thank you so much for that, Seema. Firstly, I just want to, thank you all from the bottom of my heart. It's been such a pleasure to just be sharing the screen with the three of you, and such an interesting discussion we've had today. So thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Chandra, Dr. Aarti, Seema. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very much,
Arti.
Aarti.
I
Thank
think,
you,
like we
Arti,
were
for
saying
having us.
before, your background has also been so beautiful. It's really nice
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
great
Thank you so
moderation.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panel members.
very
So
nice.
that's what we had for all of you today. So a big shout out to all our women students. Please take charge and as a first step, apply now for the scholarships. Now, to all our supportive men out there, apply yourselves and encourage the women around you to do the same because the bigger, brighter, and the fascinating world of technology awaits all of you. Now, with that, we come to the end of our webinar series for the Reliance Foundation Scholarships. And now the responsibility is on you, each of our digital natives, the future of our country, and that's our dear students. The clock is ticking, and you need to make the most of this unique opportunity. So don't forget that the last day to apply is 14th of February 2022. So visit the website right away and keep your applications flowing. If you have any queries, please do not hesitate to reach us. You could email us or WhatsApp us as well. I wish each and every one of you the very best for the scholarships and hope to see you as Reliance scholars very, very soon. Till then, don't let your guard down and stay safe. But before I go, you've heard so many suggestions through our webinars over this month, but don't take our word for it. I'm going to leave you today with an experience that has been shared by one amongst you. Yes, from one of our very own Reliance Foundation scholars who went through this entire process and wanted to share her experience. This is me, Aarti, signing off. But as I leave you with the experience of our Reliance Foundation scholar, Sumitra Malagi from IIT Hyderabad. Bye bye.
Hi, I'm Sumitra, currently a master's student at IIT Hyderabad. Before joining IIT Hyderabad, I was a network infrastructure engineer at Apame Technologies, Bangalore. I completed my bachelor's in computer science from BVB College of Engineering, which is in my home city, Hubli, Karnataka. Though my MTech degree is in computer science, most of the courses that I have taken here in IIT Hyderabad are on machine learning. I aspire to contribute to the field of healthcare, be it medical imaging or drug discovery using AI. But as of now, I'm not fixated on whether I'd be doing it as part of industry or as an independent researcher after a PhD. I would say I'm just waiting for life to show up with time. If I were starting my undergraduation again, initially I would try to explore various kinds of events like entrepreneurship summits organized by engineering institutes for B schools. I would also attend well-known research conferences of the domain that interests me, even if I'm not presenting my work there. I feel participating in a mix of technical, management and research-related events will give better perspective on what to do after engineering. In due course, I would also try to organize similar events in my university to build my leadership skills. If I had to mention a must-attend conference for women, it would be the Grace Hopper Conference, which is like the biggest gathering of women technologists around the world. It is open for both UG and PG students. I would also participate in groups like Women Tech Makers, Lean in Circles, She Codes, etc. Some of the skills that I have learned over time and that have helped me are to be a team player and being humble, trying to connect with people and not being an introvert, respecting my peers and helping others whenever I can. Basically, I feel people skills are as important as technical skills are. I've enjoyed attending the masterclasses and fireside chats. They were well curated and the amount of effort that the RF team puts in organizing them reflects positively during the webinars. Both the host and the speakers tried to connect with us alike. I'm really thankful to the Reliance Foundation team for putting it together for us.